Hey everyone, and welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Camilla, and today I want to take a look at the Exit series. These are going to be coming to you from Cosmos, and for the purpose of this video, I'm specifically going to be using a recent one, The Disappearance of Sherlock Holmes, as kind of my example, but I am talking about the series as a whole and kind of giving you my thoughts on it. So these are going to be puzzle-style games, kind of like an escape room, but you're solving puzzles as you go, trying to ultimately figure out a crime. The deduction and logic lies more in the puzzles that are included though, and not necessarily leaps in logic to try to figure out what happened. The story is very linear in these. So there's a whole lot of these, quite a few. Like I said, specifically I'm going to be talking about the Disappearance of Sherlock Holmes, but with an overarch of the entire series. So let's jump right in. All right, so each of these games that you open up here are going to start with kind of a synopsis on the front page, setting it up. And I will say right off the bat, that is one thing unique about these is every one has a very unique theme and really plays into that. So you start out with a synopsis telling you about some mystery. Somebody disappeared, an ancient artifact was discovered, something weird is happening in a forest, things like that. From there, you'll have a game setup that it'll go through. There might be a special component you have to build or some things it wants you to set aside, but you'll also have as well as 3 different decks of cards. You're going to have your riddle cards, which typically are the red cards with letters on them, your answer cards with numbers, and your clue cards, which have a symbol of each of the puzzles through it. You'll also have a decoder disc in all of them that you need to have available as well, as that is how you figure out if you came to the right answer or not. So each of these decks are opened, separated, and not looked at. So they're definitely available to you the whole time and you'll use them consistently, but do not look at them, keep them face down. But with that, you're typically ready to jump right in, and it will tell you what you need to do first in the rule book, what you're looking at first in order to jump in. Whether that is, well, again, I want to remain this spoiler free, so I won't say, but sometimes it's looking at pulling a specific card, sometimes it's pulling a specific element from the game box or something like that. So from there, you're going to jump into your first riddle. Once you think you have an answer to it, you're always looking for a 3-digit code. You put that 3-digit code into your decoder here, and it's going to tell you a number on the little blue square. You'll take the answer cards and pull that number, and on the back, you're going to get one of 2 things. You'll either have a big X, which means nope, you have the wrong answer, or it'll have a chart showing different symbols which you're trying to solve. So if you're trying to unlock a chest, for example, you find the picture of that chest and it'll lead you to a second number card. You look at that second number card and again, it'll either have an X, meaning nope, that's not the right code for this item, or it'll continue the story, which then will give you additional riddle cards so you know what you're solving next, or again, just kind of further the story so you know where to go and what you're trying to solve. There can be multiple riddles going on at a time as well, so sometimes you have to have some of them figured out already before you're able to progress to another one, or you don't have all the materials in order to solve one. So you can have a couple different going on at a time, but usually, like I said, the story is pretty linear up until you come to an obvious conclusion, and it lets you know the answer to the mystery that you're trying to solve. And that's generally how you play. They all kind of have this same format, but like I said before, they all have very unique themes and settings, and they do a good job being immersed in that theme in it. So with that, let's jump to a couple things that I really like about this series. I really like the individual feel of each game. I do like how they play into that. You get that story, it makes sense, you're trying to kind of piece it together, but ultimately these are about the puzzles. And I think that leads to some really interesting discussion as well as discovery. You also have to be pretty creative to solve some of these. It's really interesting how you truly use everything given to you, and I'll get back to that here in a little bit. Other things I really like about this are the 2-step verification. So I talked about how when you get an answer, it'll immediately either tell you it's wrong, or a card number will tell you it's wrong, or it will lead you to another chart where you get a second step. That 2-step verification really makes sure that you're never stumbling into the right or the wrong answer. It means that you're having, there's a fail-safe kind of, as well as I think it really adds to the tension. You think you have it, and then you find out you don't. Oh, hold on, let me go back to the drawing board a second, kind of figure out what I did wrong. But I think doing it that way keeps it from spoiling, but also feeds into that nice tension. Speaking of that and those kind of step verifications as well, I really like the help cards. I think they do a good job of at the top of them, they always say, in order to solve this puzzle, you need to have these already taken care of, or these already figured out. You need to have access to these items. And so you can quickly see as I'm working, putting a lot of time into this puzzle, that I've not solved this other one yet, and clearly I need to do that one first because I don't have access to this. So it does, right off the bat, helps you just make sure that you're like on the right track and that you've done the necessary things in order to solve this riddle. And I just think that that's really genius. Again, these multiple steps that they do in order to verify the correct answer or to help, I think really make it a smooth experience in the play. So the help system I like, the answer cards I really like. I appreciate the level system as well that they use, that they rate these games. They have novice, advanced, expert, I guess, is their top one. And I like that a lot. I do find that I think that up to that advanced is where it's kind of my sweet spot. The expert ones, I'm just having to go to the help cards a little too much, you know. So my sweet spot is right there in the middle, or I do get a lot of enjoyment out of the younger ones, or not the younger ones, the easier ones as well, just more in the activity, you know, kind of realm. Those ones that I'm playing solo, I tend to prefer the easy ones, just because I don't have that second mind to bounce things off. But I'm playing with somebody else, especially someone that's played, definitely that advanced is kind of where I go, and that's usually the three dots. I think that's really important too, and I think it's good that they do that because once you play a couple of these, you can kind of find your own sweet spot, and you know to seek that out, you know, and I think that's really fun. I think they do well with it as well. I found with that advanced, I usually have to pull 1 or 2 help cards, but I can still do it. It takes me a little bit longer to do because I'm really having to puzzle through these, but that's fun to me. They're easy to start. You open the box, you put it out, especially once you've done one of these, you kind of glance over the rules just to make sure it's not doing anything funky or find out what you start with, but you really jump right in. I like that as well. But my favorite thing about these is the success as you go. I like that there's kind of that constant endorphin drip, you know, and you kind of constantly feel clever as you figure these out. Even when you don't get it right and you do have to go to the help, or maybe you have to make it all the way to the solution card, you're like, oh, I was so close. But that's inspiring to do another one, if you will. You want to keep going. And I like that. I like that as opposed to some other ones I do where you're trying to just deduce as you go through and figure out what happens, and then you consult a solution book to see how close you were. This is definitely my preferred style, where everything is there and it's telling me the story. I'm not having to create the story and figure out if I was way off base or not at the end. I think this kind of constant endorphin drip of there being the multiple puzzles in it, and when you get one, it just feels so good. So I really like that about it. There are a couple things that I don't love. I wouldn't say, some of these I actively dislike. Others of them I'm just like, on it. So we'll start with the With the I'm not a fan of it using everything, including the box. And I haven't really nailed down why. I think it's because I don't naturally think like that, and so it always gets me. But the puzzles where it turns to the box or to lifting up an insert, you know, something weird like that, almost every time I've had to use a help card on one of those, I just don't think about the box as a component. Now, this is a me thing. I think that is incredibly creative and it's fantastic. And yes, after playing multiple of these games, you think that I would remember that you need to use the box. But for whatever reason, I just never think about it in the moment. So that for me is kind of like it trips me up every time, and my brain is just not wired like that. I think it's highly creative. I think it's good. It just trips me up and I don't love it. So you truly, knowing that going into these, you truly use everything given to you, or you might use everything given to you. I want to say print no mistakes. They cut no corners. Everything they print was thought about, and that's really interesting. I also kind of don't know, there's multiple riddles going on at once. And sometimes I really like that and think that's clever, but I think sometimes it also detracts from the riddle. You know, if you're playing with somebody else and you have I think I've had up to 3 going on at a time, and it's hard to know which one to prioritize over the other. And so sometimes it's become, okay, well, you work on that one, I'll work on this one. Oh wait, I can't do mine. Are you stuck? I don't know, I'm stuck. And I really like when everyone's just kind of focused on one. Yes, that is player dependent. You just kind of need to make that conscientious decision to focus together on one, but sometimes it does feel a little bit pulled in a couple different directions, especially when that order does matter and you need to make sure that you have certain things unlocked already. So I'm not a huge fan. I wouldn't say I actively dislike that. It's more like, I prefer not to have it. I prefer if we focus on one at a time, and sometimes I don't know which one to focus on, and so it just kind of seemed like a little bit of wasted time up until you're ready for it. Then the final thing I want to mention here, and this is one that I do actively dislike, and that is the need for extra materials in this game. Now, this is typically a pen and paper. I'm fine with. You're always going to need that, whether it's pen and paper or you can take notes on your phone, something like that. But there's quite a few times where you're having to puzzle something out and you might need to write something, jot a little note to yourself. Like I said, you're trying to come up with a 3-digit code. Maybe you need to figure out one number at a time, and so you write it down so you're not having to hold that up here. I'm fine with all that. I kind of expect that. But the one that really kind of holds me up is there's needs for scissors in quite a few of these I've found. I like these as travel games. Not exclusively, but I do really like that. These are great like in your hotel room games or different activities. I've taken them on the Dice Tower cruise before. I've taken them on trips with my girlfriends where, you know, they're not really gamers, but they do like these puzzle kind of things. And so it's something we can do together. And in those travel situations, I don't travel with scissors. Maybe that's on me. Maybe that's on TSA. I don't know. I don't want to point fingers here, but I don't always have access to scissors, and that one, I wish it wasn't that way. I wish they could come up with some way for these puzzles to not need scissors or to be cut. So that is one that I actively dislike because I think it is so self-contained in the box here. I wish that they would keep them that way, or there's some way on the outside of the box to know that. But because it's not on the box anywhere, I don't know that until I get to the cabin or until I get to my hotel room and finally open this up, because I don't want to open it up beforehand because of spoilers or content spilling, that kind of stuff. So I don't like that. I don't like that there's other things that you might have to bring to the table and you don't know beforehand. But other than that, I don't have a whole lot of complaints about these. I really find this system to be very intuitive not even once you play it once. I think once you play kind of your first riddle, it's intuitive that you're always looking for a symbol, and with that symbol to match which annotates which puzzle you're doing, you're looking for 3 numbers. You have a 2-step verification system. The helps are there, and once you use one, you're like, oh, they're not obvious. That they really kind of help push forward that fun, if you will, so you don't get stuck. I think the 1 to 2 hours that it says on the box is good. That's what I have found in them, is 1 to 2 hours. I find that the 1 to 4 players, I definitely prefer it 1 or 2. I think once you get 3, you kind of start 3 and definitely 4, you start breaking out and looking at different puzzles at the same time. Too many cooks in the kitchen kind of feel. And then it says what, 14 plus, I believe, 12 and up. I could probably play this with a 12-year-old. Yeah, I think so. In fact, there's some of them I think that would be helpful just because they still have those really creative, much more malleable minds, if you will. They're just much more creative than me, I find. And that's it. That's my thoughts on the Exit series. Like I said in the beginning here, I was specifically looking at one of their new ones, The Disappearance of Sherlock Holmes, but these are my thoughts in general. I've looked at quite a few of these or played through quite a few of these already, but it's one that I look forward to keep delving into and seeing what is unique about each of these. So it's one that I'm not tired of yet, even though I've played multiple. I definitely don't feel like I've seen everything this has to offer, and I don't feel like there's a whole lot of repeats at this point either. So definitely one that I would recommend checking out, and I look forward to continuing to do so myself. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Camilla.